There are some incredible racing locations around the world. The likes of Ironman Hawaii or Xterra Maui maybe spring to mind, that probably every triathlete has dreamed of competing in at least once, right? But for all but the lucky few, that is exactly what these races represent. They are just dreams because they are only possible by qualification for the very best professional and amateur athletes alike. But what about all the other races that are out there that anybody can enter? Where might those be, you might be wondering? Well, if that is the case, then you're in luck, because I have put my thinking cap on and compiled a bucket list of triathlons that I think you should be thinking about competing in once in your lifetime. Right then, let's get this started with what many would consider to be the spiritual home of our sport, and that is Australia. And they have got an absolute cracker in the form of the Noosa Triathlon Festival, which, given this year it will celebrate its 38th birthday, means that it is steeped in sport, because let's not forget, in the context of triathlon, that is a very long time. Now, what's cool about the Noosa Triathlon Festival is, aside from the main event, which is the Olympic distance triathlon, there are a whole host of other events that you can take part in during the festival week. And those include the likes of an ocean swim and a aquathlon. There's also a 5K running race, a criterium bike ride, plus more besides. So it's really not a surprise that upwards of 13,000 athletes descend on this idyllic corner of Queensland to get a bit of the action. Now, moving on, if we jump over the Tasman Sea and head down to the South Island of New Zealand, well, we reach the beautiful town of Wanaka. Now, this is home to possibly one of the world's toughest and certainly most honest middle distance triathlon courses. And this is all set against the beautiful alpine backdrop of New Zealand's Southern Alps. And it is this unique combination of remoteness and perhaps the toughness and honesty of this course that makes it such a remarkable event. And I won't lie, it's one that I wish that I had been able to do, and by all accounts, lots of people have told me it is definitely one to add to that bucket list. So, if Australia is being regarded as the spiritual home of our sport, then the US, and specifically California, can be regarded as the birthplace of triathlon. So on that note, I've got not just one, but three absolutely must-do events that take place in that state alone, California. So starting with the shortest of those races, let's take a look at the Olympic distance Malibu Triathlon. Now, this is set against the stunning backdrops of Zuma Beach and the Pacific Coast Highway, and both of these add a little bit of prestige, but the fact that you can do some celebrity spotting is also a bit of fun too. Now, I was very fortunate to do this race a couple of times and can confirm that it is a must-do race. So next up is the not quite Olympic distance hybrid, the Escape from Alcatraz. Now, this race needs no further introduction. Athletes jump from that famous ferry to escape from the prison island and get themselves back to shore. And indeed, it is the infamy of the prison island that attracts some 2,000 athletes back to San Francisco to race this event year after year. The competitors will then continue on an 18-mile hilly and demanding bike ride before finishing with an 8-mile run that itself loops back under the Golden Gate Bridge before finishing with a treacherous 400 steps of the sand ladder. So this is definitely not a race for the faint-hearted. So finally, and by no means least, I come to the jewel in the crown, which is Wildflower. Now, it is a half Ironman distance race known the world over for its festival-like atmosphere and its on-site camping, the very challenging bike and run courses, and perhaps more fun, the very enthusiastic collegiate volunteers who man all the aid stations on the run course. Now, there's even rumours over the years of there having been a nude aid station, but I couldn't possibly confirm or deny that. But there is one thing that is certain: it is an unforgettable racing experience, and there is a reason why it is called the one and only, because there really isn't anything else like it. Right then, so if Australia and California have locked in the spiritual home and the birthplace of the sport, then Europe, by all accounts, has become the cultural hub of the sport of triathlon. It's the place where you think of huge crowds lining the course and creating an atmosphere like nowhere else on the planet. Well, if I'm thinking about huge crowds lining a course, then I'm drawn to the famous Grand Tour stages and mountaintop finishes, and possibly one of the most famous mountaintop finishes is Alpe d'Huez. So what about adding a 2.2k swim and then going for a 118k bike ride that finishes with those famous 21 hairpin bends up the Alp, before then tackling a 20k run at the mountain top? Well, that is what makes the Alpe d'Huez long course triathlon quite such an incredible experience, and one that you should probably think about doing at least once. And indeed, our new colleague James, well, he has won this race more than once, no less, so he definitely thinks that you should give this a go. Now, I'm going to start sounding like a broken record here, but knowledgeable, enthusiastic crowds are a common theme at the biggest races in Europe. And that takes us back to France and the beautiful Côte d'Azur. Now, Ironman Nice is one of the oldest triathlon venues on the continent, and there are so many reasons to make it worthwhile you entering this event. Not least the stunning bike course that takes athletes up the Col de Vence behind the city, passing through picturesque villages and also rewarding athletes with incredible views of the city and the Promenade des Anglais that they will then complete their marathon on. Now, I think, as the French might say, it is c'est magnifique. But if the alpine climbs of the likes of Alpe d'Huez and Nice aren't quite your thing, and that's entirely understandable, then how about some other events that still have fantastic crowd support lining the racecourse, but have more rolling terrain on the bike course? Well, if that's caught your attention, then there are a couple of events that I can suggest to you now. Ironman Frankfurt and Ironman Austria in the quaint lakeside town of Klagenfurt. Now, I can say with some certainty that Ironman Frankfurt is an incredible experience, especially for a big city centre event, and many of my friends say exactly the same about the Austria race as well. So both are certainly worthy inclusions of this bucket list race list. Right then, now this bucket list isn't solely about tarmac or indeed the longer distance races. Now, I wasn't going to forget about Xterra, and on that note, here is one for you to consider. Xterra France, which is in Zonru, a small village that itself is actually only a stone's throw away from Gérardmer, which is a race that we included in the video Epic Triathlons that you have never heard of, and there'll be a link to that at the end of this video. So not only is this one of the oldest, biggest and well-organized events on the entire Xterra World Tour, but it is also one of the hardest too, so it definitely packs a punch. And then add in the prospect of some adverse weather conditions, and you've got all the hallmarks of an event that you're unlikely to forget in a hurry. Now, I was actually very lucky to be able to spend some time training during the summers in and around Gérardmer and the Vosges, and it's a beautiful part of the world, one that I'd certainly like to return to with a mountain bike. So maybe some of you guys might like to come too. But that's it. That is my list of bucket list triathlons that you should have a think about doing at least once. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, what you think about my list, and also if you've got any that I've forgotten about, please drop them in the comments below. And don't forget, of course, to subscribe to the channel to get all the other content that we have here on GTN, and please hit that thumb up like button too.
Nice one.
For